It is college football playoff prediction time. This is your opportunity to find out 5 months in advance who's going to be playing for the national championship trophy. Now, why are my predictions so much better than everybody else's? Okay, I would like you to try to find somebody who got 7 of the 12 college football playoff participants correct last year, got half of the final 4 correct, and had a national championship game participant that was not named Ohio State. I'll wait. But I will say, if I'm going to talk about the wins, I got to talk about the misses. Florida State and Utah. Who could have predicted a 2-10 team out of Florida State? Or Utah going through like 17 quarterbacks last year? Nobody. But this year, I am laser focused on going 12 for 12 and getting all of these right. We're going to do this bracket style, the same way that they do the college football playoff rankings on the television. First game up, we got our 5-12 matchup. We got UNLV versus Notre Dame. We're going to start with number 12, UNLV. And no, I'm not saying this because I had a chance to sit down with Dan Mullen this spring and hear him outline his vision for the Running Rebels, which you should go check out on Unafraid show. Hell of an interview. This is about the players that Dan Mullen brought in with him to Las Vegas. They are legit. Or they could be with the right opportunity. You got Alex Orji, Jake Pope, LT Welch, Justin Flo, JoJo Ely, Jaylon Glover, and so many more. Like, these are guys that had a world of hype on them at one point in time in their career and didn't quite deliver. But this is an opportunity for them. These are SEC, Big 10, Big 12 bodies in the Mountain West. And if their quarterback transfer from Michigan, Alex Orji, if he can't hold down the job as the passer, then you got Anthony Caldera as an intriguing option. The dude had 18 touchdown passes and was averaging 290 yards per game over his first 9 starts before things fell apart at Virginia. And they are going to be heading to Notre Dame Stadium to take on the Fighting Irish. Last year, Marcus Freeman had Notre Dame fans hitting the confessional, trying to seek forgiveness, because when they went on that run after losing to Northern Illinois, they had some crow to eat because they was trying to fire that man. Now, the Catholics, they did have a little bit of crisis of faith during that time, but they're back in a big way. And you know that this is true because everybody is back to complaining about the Fighting Irish not having a conference. When that talk starts up, you know Notre Dame is back in contention. And they have given their quarterback, CJ Carr, or whether it's Kenny Minchie, all they need to succeed because they got a big physical offensive line, wide receiver transfers like Malachi Fields and Will Pauling. And as long as the Irish can move the ball down the field in the passing game, they're going to be good. And even though the season starts out with tough games against Miami, A&M, Boise State, Las Vegas still believes that Notre Dame has the best odds to run the table in 2025. And when they play UNLV, it is going to be a smoke show. In the next game up, we got Ohio State as the 8th seed versus number 9, the Georgia Bulldogs. This game will be at Ohio Stadium, and the Buckeyes and their fans, they ain't gonna mind being the 8th seed. Not after winning the whole thing out of that same slot last year. Because Ohio State has the best defensive player in all of college football, probably, in Caleb Downs. And they have the best wide receiver room and the best single wide receiver in Jeremiah Smith. And then when you add him with Brandon Enos, Carnell Tate, Mylan Graham, that's something, a force to be reckoned with. But what else do they have? Because that's impressive. But it's not enough to feel like that they'll be a college football playoff team after all they lost last year. At quarterback, they're going to be starting Julian Sayin, who was a one-time consensus top 3 recruit out of high school. And they got Max Clare, who was Purdue's best offensive player, and he's going to get a lot of run at tight end for the Buckeyes. West Virginia lost their running back, C.J. Donaldson, who's now at Ohio State. The kid has reshaped his body in anticipation of a huge workload. And then you got North Carolina transfer edge, Bo Atkinson, who's going to have a lot of opportunity to become a star player in the Big Ten. But there are a lot of unknowns with this team. Starting a first-time starter quarterback, new OC, who's only been an OC 1 year and you demoted him that time. So it will be Ryan Day's best coaching job to date if he can get this team to win. And the team that they'll be up against, the Georgia Bulldogs. People are wondering at this point if Kirby Smart is losing his death grip on the SEC. But the Bulldogs, they might have been a quarterback injury away from a trip to the Natty last year. And with Nick Saban gone out of college football, if there is any coach that you can look at to rebuild and not reload, it is Kirby Smart in Georgia. His quarterback situation, he got Gunnar Stockton, who doesn't need to be a hero. If he hits his intermediate throws, doesn't turn the ball over, and let the super talented group of wide receivers like Zachariah Branch, Noah Thomas, Kobe Young, Dylan Bell, if they can do their work after the catch, they'll be fine. The key to success for this team, protect the football, play good defense, and hope that offensive coordinator Mike Bobo isn't afraid to give up-and-coming running back star Nate Frazier more than 10 to 12 carries a game. Now, I'm also concerned about this team because of the defense. They didn't have anybody really get consistent pressure last year, and they lost almost everybody that did disrupt the opposing quarterback to the NFL draft. You got 6'4", 305-pound defensive lineman Christian Miller. He's going to have to quadruple his production from last season, or that Georgia offense is going to be in some shootouts. So with that said, give me the Buckeyes to move on at home. The next matchup is number 10 Illinois at number 7 Kansas State. We'll start with Illinois here, because when a very good team retains most of their talent, we're talking 16 starters from last year, 18 from the bowl game, it will make you forget that this school has never, repeat, never had back-to-back double-digit winning seasons. Now that streak, it's going to stop this year. Behind the pairing of head coach Brett Bielema and their quarterback Luke Altmaier, go on Unafraid show and listen to that interview. It's great. Now, when you have a gritty fifth-year senior quarterback like Luke Altmaier and a defense that gave up 3 touchdowns or less 7 times last year, you deserve that type of hype that comes along with that. But if Illinois actually lives up to this hype, it'll be because of 5 guys. 5. You got J.C. Davis, Melvin Presley, Josh Kreutz, Josh Geske, and Brandon Henderson. Now, you never heard of those names before, right? Well, you're not supposed to, because if they do their job right, those are the names of Illinois' projected starting offensive linemen. And that team will be headed to go play Kansas State, because Texas Tech could win the Big 12. Iowa State could win the Big 12. Arizona State could easily repeat and win it again. But you should not sleep on TCU, Baylor, or Colorado. The long story short is, this is a fun conference that is going to be hard to predict. But I'm putting my early money on Kansas State as a team that has 3 straight seasons of 9+ wins. Plus, they return their quarterback Avery Johnson, their running back Dylan Edwards, and a stingy run defense featuring Austin Romaine at linebacker. Now, you know what really stands out about Kansas State, though, is that they do the one thing that you need a serious football contender to do. Number 1, they run the football. And number 2, they stop the run. Last year's split was 216 to 119, which is absolutely awesome. If K-State head coach Chris Kleiman can get a way to get that 6'5", 223-pound wide receiver Jaron Bradley back on track the way he looked at Texas Tech in 2023, then the Wildcats will have the type of offense that could dominate the conference. But they do have to beat Iowa State to start the season. Otherwise, the margin of error for the Wildcats will be razor thin. And in this Kansas State-Illinois game, which will be played in Manhattan, give me Illinois with their first playoff victory. In the next first-round game, we got a conference showdown, and that is number 11 South Carolina playing a team that they played in the regular season, number 6 LSU. Now, you know that this is going to be a tough game because it's going to be at Death Valley, but we'll start with South Carolina. The Gamecocks were the darling of the end of the college football season last year. You had people wanting to put them in the playoff despite the rest of the season because they finished with 6 straight victories, including 4 wins over top 25 teams. That was a hell of a way to end 2024. And they managed to retain their star quarterback, Ilinois Sellers, despite reports that he was offered up to $8 million for 2 years to transfer. They got their stud defensive end, Dylan Stewart, and Jalen Kilgore at DB. That's the reason for all this hype. Plus, they got a running back that graduated high school the same year as, yes, Trevor Lawrence. The kid's name is Rasul Faison, and he might have a monster year against dudes who were in like 7th grade when he started college. But what I'm worried about is an inexperienced defensive line outside of Dylan Stewart, because they're going to be relying on transfers from Campbell, Bowling Green, and Georgia Southern. And they have a schedule that includes the road game against the team they're playing now, LSU, Ole Miss, and Texas A&M. Now let's talk about them Tigers. I got to be honest, I don't know how good I feel about this because Brian Kelly has clearly been able to keep this offense humming along as one of the best in college football. Jaden Daniels winning a Heisman Trophy, Garrett Nussmeier throwing for 4,000 yards last year. But this is a team that allowed almost 5 touchdowns per game against top 25 teams in the last 3 years. Thought Brian Kelly was supposed to be a defensive guy. Now, this defense hasn't been good enough to take the Tigers seriously at all. But this year, we're supposed to take them seriously. And when we're doing the math on this, the best shot that LSU has at a college football playoff run, number one, is the strong return for Harold Perkins Jr. from injury. You got Jacoby and Guillory and Whit Weeks to go along with solid play from transfers like Jack Clyburn, Masur Delane, and Patrick Payton. There's no question that the talent is there. If the Tigers are healthy and they're getting decent play out of those guys who step in to play offensive tackle this year, then they should be a lock for the college football playoff. My gut says that South Carolina's probably going to peak toward the end of the season again. Now, initially, I wanted to pick South Carolina in this game. But I do believe that with the transfers, this is the year that LSU puts up some competent defense, and that's going to put them over the top, plus playing a night game at home likely in Death Valley. Now let's step into the quarterfinals here. And the team that LSU will be playing is the same team that they played to open up the season, the Clemson Tigers. Yes, I did go out to Clemson and I drank the orange and purple Kool-Aid when I got a chance to interview Dabo. Swinney, you guys go on Unafraid show, awesome interview as well. But if I'm being honest, right? A lot of the disagreements that I've had with how Clemson has approached the transfer portal and NIL era were complete misunderstandings. Because Dabo Swinney isn't against the direction of college football. He's just intent on making sure the era enhances and showcases the program's value instead of coming up with the new values. And his plan is literally looking brilliant right now. His focus is on education, turning these guys into men, and developing players and not pushing guys in the transfer portal. Because the Tigers are only one of a few programs in America that have a roster full of players that have all been coached by the same staff for 3 to 5 years. Because Clemson, they won the ACC last year. And there is no reason to believe that this offense is going to lose a step with Cade Klubnik at quarterback, who was much better than he's ever been last year. And I got a chance to see him at the Elite 11. Kid looked awesome throwing the ball. So assuming that he takes another step forward, yeah, we looking at potential first pick in the draft. But what about this defense though? Can Tom Allen step in at coordinator and get the most out of TJ Parker, Peter Woods, and Avion Terrell? Now, I expect Clemson, if healthy, to be favored in every game this year, including the opener against LSU. And this game against LSU, which Clemson will do what they did in the beginning of the season and take LSU out again. Now let's get on to the 2-seed Texas, who will be taking on the winner of the Illinois-Kansas State game. I guess on some level, this is me coming out as an Arch Manning believer, because last year's Texas team looked like an NFL roster. They had size, speed, and a pass defense that looked like it was made for Sundays while making opponents feel like that they should be playing on Friday nights. Steve Sarkisian has built such a roster that I'd probably still have Texas in my top 4 if they didn't add Stanford wide receiver Emmett Mosley, or Cal tight end Jack Injuries, or the defensive tackle trio of Cole Brevard from Purdue, Travis Shaw from North Carolina, or Hero Kanu from Ohio State. And then you got to think about what they're bringing back from their own team. Superstar defensive end Colin Simmons. They got Anthony Hill, who's a stud as well, and they combined for 17 sacks last year. What do you think is going to be in 2025 playing with those defensive tackles? 25 sacks? Maybe more? All Texas needs is Arch Manning to be good. But what if he's more than good? What if he wins the championship? That'll be living up the hype. And then you're going to have Texas taking on a red-hot Illinois team. And Texas, remember, is going to have a bye. So all the teams that were on a bye last year, they suffered in the first half and started very slow. So this game is going to be much closer than a lot of people think, but Texas is going to pull it out with Mr. Arch Manning. In the next quarterfinal game, we have what I predicted to be the national championship last year, Oregon versus Notre Dame. Well, I know the playoff committee with the seeding threw me off a little bit, but this is the game we've been wanting to see. We got young hotshot head coaches, Marcus Freeman versus Dan Lanning. We've already talked about Notre Dame. Let's talk about them damn Oregon Ducks. This is a team that's coming off of having 2 NFL draft picks in the first round last year and the most players ever drafted by the University of Oregon in one single draft. And this year, they're going to be replacing that offensive line with 2 transfers, Isaiah World, who people are projecting to be a first-round pick, and Pregnon, who came over from USC in the transfer portal as well. So this offensive line, as good as it was last year, will be better. They added Mekhi Hughes, the running back from Tulane last year, who's one of the top running backs in the country. They have the #1 tight end in the country in Sadiq Bey, who's going to be a first-round pick if he comes out next year. They also added Dylan Thieneman, the transfer from Purdue. We've started a lot of Purdue transfers, bro. They got rated in the offseason. And they have Mateo Uiagalelei and the defensive end, who's a potential first-round pick as well. Now, this Oregon team is good, and as talented as they are not without questions, just like some of the top teams in the country. Their questions start at the quarterback position. First of all, who is going to be the starter? It's expected to be Dante Moore, but hearing from the Ducks community, their coaching staff, and everything else, they would feel comfortable if it is Austin Novosad as well. The next question mark is at wide receiver because they lost Evan Stewart, presumably for the year, with a devastating knee injury. But they have recruited well at that spot. DeCorian Moore, high school standout 5-star from last year, is expected to be a day 1 starter. So you know what that man is out there doing in practice. But if we've learned in 3 seasons about Dan Lanning's teams, they are going to play tough defense. They are going to put up points, and they're going to win a lot of football games. So it doesn't feel like if they will make the college football playoff, just how high they will be seeded and if they can win the championship. This Oregon-Notre Dame game will either be in the Sugar Bowl, the Orange Bowl, the Rose Bowl, or the Cotton Bowl. And so will the other quarterfinal games. But give me the Ducks to head on out of this bracket on into the semifinals. And the last quarterfinal game that we have to talk about is #1 Penn State versus #8 Ohio State. That sounds crazy coming out of my mouth. And we've already talked about Ohio State, so let's talk about Penn State. So what? So what if they couldn't win any big games under James Franklin in years past? In truth be told, I'm not trying to convince you. I'm trying to convince me. Because I am torn. If anybody's been following me, everybody knows I'm not a huge Drew Aller fan. And they've put on film what they've put on film. But here is what we need to know, because you're probably wondering, George, how the hell do you have them as your number one seed if that's the case? Well, sometimes, honestly, it's about timing. And a broken clock is right twice a day, because most teams in the college football playoff are reloading or reestablishing themselves. Meanwhile, you got Penn State returning 9 starters on offense, the best running back duo in America with Katron Allen and Nick Singleton, and the entire left side of their offensive line. And not only is Penn State at an advantage experience-wise, they're at an advantage with their strengths. And I get that you aren't going to be able to replace Abdul Carter and Ty Warren with just one single player. But this is also Penn State we're talking about. They might not be able to follow up All-Americans with All-Americans, but you can guarantee they got a few other tight ends on that roster and linebackers that can absolutely ball out. Everything about Penn State is going to be about Drew Aller. And yes, they have to win some of these games eventually, right? But the real advantage is their schedule here. They get to host Oregon early in the season when they're breaking in a new quarterback in a whiteout game. And they get a bye before they travel to Columbus to play Ohio State. And they don't have to play Washington, Illinois, or Michigan. All the teams that I have in my top 25. So everything sets up for Penn State and James Franklin to have a chance to be the number one seed. But the problem is they got to play Ohio State, and Ohio State is going to do what they always do to Penn State. Whoop! Sorry, Penn State fans. More of the same. More of the same heartbreak. Before we get to these semifinal games, make sure that you guys like, subscribe, get notifications, tell a friend about the Unafraid show. Now let's get on to these semifinal games, which will be played at either the Peach Bowl or the Fiesta Bowl. We got the Oregon Ducks versus Ohio State. And we got Texas versus Clemson. Huge brands, and the styles are different. Oh my Lord. And let's start with the Texas-Clemson game, because people have been shocked that when it came to my preseason top 25, I put Clemson in the one spot. They're like, how could you have that? They got the best defensive line in college football. They're coached by Dabo Swinney. They got a lot going. And they're going to be meeting Sark, who has reloaded this Texas offense and roster in general. And we're going to see what Arch Manning is really made of. But when it comes down to this game, so many people have Texas winning the national championship. Not me. Clemson Tigers win this football game. Now let's head over to that revenge match for the Oregon Ducks versus Ohio State. You know that Oregon, after finishing the season and the Big Ten champions undefeated, 13-0, to only go into the playoff game and get run around by Jeremiah Smith, Will Howard, Judkins, and Caleb Downs and the rest of the crew. Well, this year, it's different. This year, the Ducks are ready. They are going to understand how to handle that first round bye. They are going to be chomping at the bit against Ohio State. And Oregon will be in the national championship versus Clemson. So now let's talk about this national championship game. This is where it is important for me to be honest. It is important for me to call it like I see it. I do believe that Oregon will win a national championship very, very soon. I believe that we are looking at a season where something special is brewing in Eugene. But there's also something real special brewing in Clemson right now, and it's been building. This is something that Dabo Swinney has stood on. When everybody else has been pumping in all the transfer portal players, when everybody else has been going against the grain, he's been steadfast. Like, this is how we do it. We recruit, we develop, and then when special years come up, we take advantage. They are going to play the Oregon Ducks in the national championship, and I'm sorry, Oregon fans, I'm picking Clemson to win the national championship. It's a reverse jinx. So just know that. But anyways, though, you guys, thank you for watching this video. I'm calling my shot. Leave in the comments where you think the gaps are, because there's nobody better. Former NFL player, former college football player, college football analyst, man who loves this game so much. Be one of us here on the Unafraid Show. Like, subscribe, get notifications. Peace out. Catch you guys later.